everybody. So in this video, we have an incredible panel with me today. A familiar face and a new face with us. I'm going to start off by introducing Tyler. Welcome to the channel, Tyler. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Doing
doing
good.
very well. Thank you.
Doing good. Yeah, I had Tyler on about a year ago. We talked about Marvel. It's been a while, but I wanted to bring him on again to talk about Avengers Campus, Disneyland Forward. We have a lot to talk about. So Tyler, thank you so much for coming on. Where can everybody find you on social media before we get started?
It's going to be at WraithKelso, and that's on Twitter, Instagram, all social media.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on again, Tyler. And then we have a familiar face here, Mr. Dre, VashSky. How you doing, Vash?
Doing pretty good. I got my Avengers gear on. I'm representing there.
Oh, nice.
I'm excited about Avengers Campus opening. I'm totally thrilled by it. A little bit sooner than my predictions would have guessed, but yeah, that's okay. That's all right. I'm excited and I'm here. Let's talk about it.
Disney loves to surprise us. They love to throw those curveballs, Dre.
Exactly. It's part of the magic.
It's part of the magic.
Mm-hmm.
So Tyler, I'm going to start off with you today. Let's talk about the reopening date, the announcement for Avengers Campus, when that's going to open. What are your feelings on all of this, all of these opening dates?
Yeah, so let's start with the parks being able to reopen on the 30th. First controversial opinion of the day. I'm actually kind of glad that it took this long, because it means that we are far less likely to have the parks closed again, like we've seen happen overseas. Yes, Florida hasn't, but Florida has interesting leadership compared to the other areas that have Disney parks. So I'm actually kind of glad that it took longer for us to reopen, because it means that we won't have to close again in a month. So that's the first controversial opinion of the day. Second controversial opinion on the reopening is I'm actually kind of glad that there are no annual passes at this time, because this way those that got so used to being able to just do their monthly payments on their annual pass are going to get a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be an out-of-town visitor like myself. And then they still don't have to do hotel and air, so they're still getting it cheaper than it would be if I were to go. But just that juxtaposition of, oh, I'm at least spending $100 a day when I go, and it's not that case for most annual pass holders. So it's kind of nice to see that, at least for a little bit, everybody's going to be treated as if they're an out-of-town guest.
Right. It's a very even playing field right now. Everyone's in the same boat. VashSky, what are your feelings, man? Well, I know you have an opinion on this. This is a very interesting, topic in regard to these opening dates. A lot of surprises.
Well, I'll rebut by saying I slightly disagree on Tyler's take about the parks opening taking this long, but that's neither here nor there. They are opening. Good things. I think my take on it was, we've seen this at Walt Disney World now. They reopened the parks, activated ticket sales, and they can go in. You can experience the parks. It's fantastic. But they're doing the same thing as Walt Disney World, where they are. And to Tyler's later point, they're offering a truncated experience. You're not going to have nighttime shows initially. You're not going to have Fantasmic. You're not going to have shows and entertainment in general. You're going to have just a kind of, not even the full suite of attractions, restaurants, shops, all those things, but yet they're still charging the same price to get in. And I think that's my kind of difficulty with it, is the value statement's completely off. It's completely shifted. The parks have never offered they've never offered less and charged more. And I think that's my kind of my issue with it is you're going full board. There's not even tier 1 days available in April, May and June that they posted the calendar, and there's nothing there. So I think that's my my hesitancy towards it. I'm not so inclined about that. I mean, I was just talking it over with my family last night, and we were discussing and we were looking at the prices, and it, initially we were going to go maybe 5 days, and now maybe it's 2 days and a day at Universal and a day at Knott's Berry Farm, because hey, they seem a little bit hungrier to get the guests back and deliver on their promises than maybe Disney is right now, and that's really unfortunate. The park should be hungry. The park should be wanting to give not just an experience but value, especially right now. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I'm super excited. I'm wearing the gear, man. I'm really excited. I want to go back, and I'm glad that they're opening Avengers Campus, and it's great. But again, I just can't get that nagging feeling out of my mind.
Yeah. You both make some great points. To Tyler's point about kind of like annual pass holders are sort of now kind of feeling what it's like to be out of state or a tourist. I think in a way that's kind of a good thing for a lot of people. And what I mean by that is that I think that as annual pass holders, and myself included, when you have a pass and you can pop in the park and pop out whenever you want, any day you want, the parks become kind of normalized in the sense that it becomes like going to the mall. It's not a big deal. You just go, whatever. I think now forcing people, at least for this time being, this little, short period of time, forcing them to sort of having to buy these tickets and just become like a regular tourist, you don't get that privilege of going all the time. I think it'll sort of create a sense of appreciation for these parks, kind of regain that appreciation where they're not just these places that are so easily available now. You have to kind of, your trips might be a little more spaced out than they used to be when you were an annual pass holder, and that might be good for some people, I think, Dre, you also bring up a great point though. Like it's a truncated experience. It's limited. There's no entertainment. A lot of the attractions are closed, but yet they're still charging you the same price. And we talked about that in a video recently, a few weeks ago, where you were concerned about how, if people continue to pay for that, and they have high attendance, or people are so willing to throw their money at Disney when there's when they're cutting the experience, it doesn't give Disney much incentive to bring any of that stuff back, and that was a valid point you brought up, and it's true. I mean, if people are willing to pay the same price for a lesser experience, why is Disney gonna bring any of it back? Why would they?
According to Bob Chapek, I mean, the guest experience surveys have never been higher. They've never been. I mean, it's it's great. What? Our guests love the fact that we don't have nighttime entertainment, fireworks, sparks, blah, 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 blah. They love it. They're still going. We still got bookings. We're fine. Don't worry about it, guys. It's okay. Everything's fine. It's like, no, everything's not okay. Everything's not fine. Stop lulling yourself into a false sense of security. Stop resting on your laurels. I understand you're Disney. You're good. You got the nostalgia. Everybody's, really excited about coming back and seeing you again, and you got the memories, you got the IP. That's great, but you can't rest right now. It's you got a lot of perks that are really hungry. Like I said, the competition's significant. It's only growing by the day. So I don't know. Just keep fooling yourself, I guess.
Yeah. Now, Tyler, I know you're a fan of like the meet and greet experience and things like that. Are you concerned about that whole element of the theme park experience because of like what VashSky touched upon in regards to, people willing to pay the same amount for not having any of that stuff?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so for me personally, I typically will go for a minimum of a 4-day trip. Like bare minimum, I'm at Disney for 4 days if I'm going, usually 5. And then maybe I'll tack on a day at Universal for Harry Potter because I can spend an entire day in that area. But over at Disney, one of the things that makes it take that many days is watching all the entertainment. I skip Playhouse Disney. I skip, sometimes the shows that are in the theaters, but I watch the parades every time. I watch Fantasmic, World of Color, fireworks every time. I've been there dozens of times, yet I still watch them all the time because they're fun.
Yeah.
And characters, I mean, one of the things that I have as a goal for each trip is to try to see as many characters as I possibly can during the trip. And like when I went for a Halloween party once, I made it a goal to see each different character at least once during that 5-day trip. Now that meant skipping Mickey and Minnie a couple times because they were in multiple different outfits throughout the parks. But I did make it a goal to try to see every character I could, which I came pretty close. I think I missed one or two villains, but I think I got just about everybody else.
Wow.
But even, I'm a little concerned about how they're kind of teasing Avengers Campus with the characters, especially looking at what they've done with Galaxy's Edge. And knowing how they've had Jack Sparrow on the island and around New Orleans in the past, where it can be hard to find him. You really got to like luck into finding him. And as somebody who enjoys those character interactions, I'm a little concerned that with Avengers Campus, most of them are, even when we get past the point of the pandemic and having to have the characters be further away from guests, which is understandable for now. When we get past that, I'm a little concerned that it's going to still be mostly, they're going to be off at a distance doing a stunt show, and you won't be able to go get a picture with insert character, especially there's a handful that are listed for the area that I have yet to see in person, because the last time I was there was before they started having Black Panther. So It's been a while.
Now, you touched upon Avengers Campus, and that's a perfect segue into our next segment, which is going to be Avengers Campus. The opening date was announced June 4th. Yeah, I mean, it's concerning to me in regards to Avengers Campus. This whole Spider-Man animatronic, Stuntronic, right? What they're calling it, because I've seen this before with Imagineering in Disney, where they come up with this really cool technology. And I don't know if you guys remember, Lucky the dinosaur in the early 2000s. Imagineering touted this amazing dinosaur that would interact with guests, and they'd roll him out. And he too was also at DCA for like 3 days or something like that. We've seen it in Florida. They rolled out that amazing flying dragon for the new Fantasyland, never to be seen again. That was it. I think it was one and done. I'm worried that Spider-Man Stuntronic is going to have a similar fate to the dragon and the Lucky the dinosaur, where they come up with this really cool technology. It's a cool animatronic, but it's out there for like 2.5 days, and then it's never seen again. Vash, are you concerned about that as well, where this thing is going to be out there for a couple times and then it's going to be mothballed?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, in the case of the dragon, it was one night for the press, and that's it.
Right.
And look at what we've seen with Galaxy's Edge recently. Right? They had these amazing shows put on for the press at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World, where characters, they kind of fought, and there was almost like a stunt show, pyrotechnic show. We didn't see that.
Right.
The press did, and the X-wings flew, and we never saw that. It's just I think you make a good point. It's like, okay, they tout this stuff, and it's like, okay, well, is this something that we're going to be able to see this time? Now, I will say they have been like advertising it pretty heavily. It would be, it's not like the dragon where it was like, hidden. Although it did make it into marketing material, but they've been kind of touting this on its own, this Spider-Man web-slinger element. So I'm guessing it's going to be part of the show, but I mean, to your point, it's like, man, so many promises have been made, and how many of them have been kept over time. Tyler talked about the Jack Sparrow. There used to be like a show component to his appearances back when Pirates Lair on Times Square Island actually opened. I remember when for Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls release, Indiana Jones had like a little stunt show that would occur in various areas of Adventureland. That was really cool. I'm guessing that what they have planned for Avengers Campus is kind of in the vein of that, which is going to be awesome. And they were actually hiring cast to do so before the pandemic really struck and everything got shut down. I'm going to guess that those elements are coming.
Yeah.
they've made, and it's kind of interesting because Imagineering, there's stuff that they want to do, and then there's stuff that they like, they it's just operationally you just can't achieve every single day, day in, day out, that kind of thing. And lawyers get involved sometimes. It's a whole kind of big thing, but I just really hope that they can fulfill the promises that they've made. I think they will. But again, you guys bring up some good points. They really haven't, not every time they hit it.
Right, exactly. Now, Tyler, you're a huge Marvel guy. I had you on a year ago. We talked all Marvel. I know you love the MCU. And what are your feelings overall? Like, they dropped a ton of stuff in regards to Avengers Campus the other day, video footage of all of it. Actually, you know what? While you share your opinion, I'm actually going to go ahead and post a picture from that campus. But Tyler, what are your feelings on what you've seen from what they released the other day for Avengers Campus? Are you excited, or are you not impressed, or what are your feelings on all this?
It's a healthy bit of both, honestly. Visually, it looks amazing. I'll be curious to see how it looks during the day, because we're getting to see the lighting packages in the images that they released. And just about everything at Disney looks great at night.
Yeah.
And not everything looks that fantastic during the day. So I'll be curious to see the contrast there. As far as like excitement of everything, yeah, I can't wait to ride that Spider-Man ride. I can't wait to go to the Pym Test Kitchen. I can't wait to check out whatever that Doctor Strange show is. It sounds like it's probably going to be something similar to like a Jedi Training Academy. I kind of hope it's a little bit different from that, because I remember the last time they did a Marvel version of Jedi Training, and it just was very lackluster. That was during the Summer of Heroes or whatever they called it. I think that was the year that that Mission Breakout opened.
Yeah.
But so that Spider-Man Stuntronic, the main reason that I think they're gonna deliver on that and keep it around is having seen some interviews over the last few days. Kevin Feige was equating it to Tinkerbell during the fireworks.
Wow.
So the fact that he was equating, that the feelings you're going to get when you see Spider-Man swinging up ahead to seeing Tinkerbell during the fireworks, that makes me think it's there for the long haul. It's not going to be an opening week thing, which would be awesome, because one of the things I love about Disney is when they set up kinetic energy within an area. Having stunt shows, having the Spider-Man Stuntronic, that will have good kinetic energy in this area that otherwise won't really have much, because it's indoor attractions and an indoor restaurant. Overall, I'm very excited. I am a little bit cautiously optimistic on the Spider-Man ride, only because and I haven't gotten to go to Galaxy's Edge yet. I intentionally was waiting until after Avengers opened to be able to do everything in one trip. So I didn't want to go to a trip with, knowing Avengers was going to be around the corner and be able to see Galaxy's Edge at that point. But, I am a little concerned that they have this trend lately of basically making a video game into a ride. We've had Astro Blasters for a long time now. Over 15 years, probably even closer to 20.
Yeah, I think that premiered with the 50th anniversary in 2005 or 6 or something like that, right?
Yeah, I know it's on the 50th anniversary map that we have. And then Toy Story Mania, again, basically a video game on a ride system. And then Millennium Falcon, essentially a video game. And then now Spider-Man is going to essentially be some sort of augmented reality video game type thing. So I do have a little bit of a concern there. For me personally, I just like to let the rides happen. I don't necessarily enjoy having to control what's happening. I think with the Millennium Falcon, that might be a different situation for me. I think I might enjoy that more, just because you're piloting the Falcon. if you're up front.
Well,
And then, but with this, I am excited about it. I'll definitely check it out. It's probably going to be a ride that I go on every trip.
Cool.
But I'm not sure if it's going to be the one I go to first or if it's going to be the one I go to multiple times. Like, I thoroughly enjoy Mission Breakout. I absolutely love it, even more so than I liked the Twilight Zone version of the ride. But for me, that ride has a lot of rewritability
Right.
because it's fun and I get to just enjoy it. I don't have to be doing anything other than occasionally holding on for dear life.
Exactly.
You know? But yeah, overall, I'm very excited by what they're giving us. I will say I am shocked that it's opening as early as it is. I did not expect it to open until they were going to be able to have closer to 100% capacity.
Yeah.
So I was imagining it was going to be sometime either late June or into July. I didn't think we were going to go more than about a year past its original opening projection, but I did not expect it to be before the state of California is going to allow 100% capacity. That genuinely surprised me.
Yeah, and Tyler, you brought up an interesting point with Kevin Feige and the Spider-Man Stuntronic, and it kind of triggers something in my brain. I'm like, Kevin Feige is a rock star at Disney, and rightfully so. The dude has completely brought them. I mean, the MCU is a powerhouse. Okay, it's their biggest franchise. I wonder in terms of the parks, the pull, the clout, Kevin Feige has. If he wants that Stuntronic, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it might not be really, it might kind of be out of JPEG's control. Like, hey man, Feige wants it, Feige gets it sort of thing. So that might bode well actually for that Stuntronic if Feige's really pushing it. But Dre, what are your feelings on these images coming out of Disney for this Avengers Campus? Are you impressed? Not so impressed? What are your feelings?
oh yeah, I mean, yeah, Kevin Feige, awesome. That's pretty cool that he would reference Tinkerbell like that. That's he didn't have to do that. Kind of using his love of Disney parks, to get the fans excited. That's cool. But yeah, so I look at the concept art and I see. A lot of Scott Drake in there. Scott Drake, he was the head on the Star Tours 2 project and also the Tomorrowland for Shanghai. So it's like, okay, I see some influence here. It's done tastefully. It's done really, really well. It looks totally unique. It's kind of like, it's interesting because you have to be distinct from Tomorrowland and Galaxy's Edge. How do you do that? Well, I think he nailed it with a lot of these things in there. And to your point, yeah, I mean, we're seeing it like at the best it's going to look, right, with its lighting package and all that. But I mean, there are some daytime photos out there of some of the elements, particularly the Pym Test Kitchen and I think it's the Doctor Strange area, and it looks really good. It looks really, really phenomenal. It looks like they really notched it up for the MCU, which is rightfully so. I mean, it's an incredible franchise, and that's awesome. To Tyler's point, I mean, I think they're moving in the direction Imagineering is with more interactive elements, and I think the reason why is the new generation is coming up where interactivity is kind of a it's a more regular occurrence. And I think there's an expectation that some sort of interactivity would be available in the parks in some way. So I think they're looking at integrating more interaction in their attractions simply because the video game generation is going to the parks now and expects that they have expectations of that. So I think that's why they're doing it. I agree with you. I mean, if done right, it can be really, really amazing. I think I sort of have a little bit more of a preference to passive style attractions where I can just lay back and have the story happen in front of me and be engaged with it in that way. Right. But they are getting better at it, I will say. It's at least with Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, it doesn't really feel like a video game when you're in there. It kind of feels like, oh, this like I'm actually doing this. This is much more tactile. You're in kind of the, show set piece of this element that you've seen on screen for so many years. I think if they do stuff like that, yeah, okay, all right, let's see what they can do.
Yeah, and I think in regards to Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, I think that's a perfect example of an attraction that really needed interactivity, because the movies, it's not the Falcon really that everyone fell in love with. It's Han Solo, Leia, and everybody in the cockpit. That banter they had in the cockpit when they're in the Falcon flying, and Han Solo is talking crap, and it's like all that banter is so much a part of why we love the Falcon. And I think that if you had a Falcon attraction without that interactivity where you can kind of talk shit to your friends and have that it wouldn't feel like the Falcon. I think that's an attraction where you kind of need that. So I think that, yeah, Imagineering kind of hit the nail on the head with that one, definitely, because I think that that's essential to the Falcon experience, so to speak,
If I was a passenger on the Falcon, I'd be like, yeah, but when can I pilot it? I do think that's kind of the way you have to go with that kind of thing. So I think they did a phenomenal job. I mean, the technology in there is just incredible, and when new missions roll out, oh yeah, that thing's gonna be killer. To Tyler's point, rewritability is key.
Yeah, I want to show you guys something, which actually I found yesterday, real quick. Let me see here. And I thought it was very, very interesting. Okay, so this was a little synopsis from this Doctor Strange show that Tyler mentioned over in Avengers Campus, right? And I noticed this right here. It says remote. Okay, so it's an ancient site hidden for centuries, and it says here, for as long as anyone can remember, rumors of unexplained events and energies have emanated, I don't know how to pronounce that, from a remote location in the hills of Los Angeles. I thought this was very interesting, that Imagineering is not abandoning, the California theme. They're trying to integrate this land, at least in a little bit, at least in a little sense of like, hey, you know what? We're trying to respect the park, and trying to tie Los Angeles and California into this. Have you guys seen this? And what are your thoughts on this? Do you like the fact that they're trying to tie this land at least a little bit into that California theme? What are your thoughts on that, Tyler?
I actually really like that they're doing that. It makes sense that there would be sanctums in California because they're kind of all over the world. So it's very plausible that there would be, ruins of a sanctum in any city, really, especially a major city like LA. So I like that. And overall, I really like that they are still trying to tie it to California. I remember before we knew any of the details of what was coming to the area, one of the first things I thought of was, well, they easily do a Black Panther Wakanda attraction and use the like what almost last scene of the movie as the inspiration, because they open a Wakandan outreach center in California.
Right.
So it was almost perfectly teeing it up for Marvel and DCA. I kind of hope we get a little bit of that in the future somehow. But I do remember kind of thinking, oh, they're giving us a little bit. Iron Man is from California, like that's where he lives. It really makes sense, and I really like that they're giving us that California feel, because I know that people have been complaining about, oh, it's not California enough. They keep getting rid of the California from California Adventure. Personally, I like the park more now than I did when it opened. And I even liked it more when it opened than when it was a parking lot. I know that can be controversial in the Disney community as well. But I really do enjoy the fact that they're tying it to California. I think it's the right move. And even if it's something that's, kind of obscure that, you'd have to have seen that, because I doubt they're going to literally say, oh, hey, Doctor Strange is right here in LA, this sanctum, while you're there in person. But the fact that they're giving us this ahead of time, and the people that really care to learn about it will be able to see it. I think
Yeah.
that's the right way to play it.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on that, Vash?
Yeah, you can evoke California without having to, replicate icons or do it cheesy. As long as I think you're true to the architectural style, the history of California, and I mean, I see a lot of those notions in the architectural styles featured in Avengers Campus. I mean, as long as you have kind of a through line in your design, you can do it and not be overt about it, and have it malleable to where, hey, look, maybe sometime down the road they do want to, rename California Adventure and alter it in some way. Well, then it's flexible for that as well, and I think that's what we're seeing here. You're still having a through line of California through it, not only in this one bit of text, but I mean you can see it in the kind of car culture, the kind of old garage that Web Slingers takes place in, the kind of some of the slick styling that we see in downtown Los Angeles. I mean it's all there, and I think that's I think that's what people want. Don't have a theme be a limitation on what you do. Really be creative and integrate in a way that actually is kind of cohesive with the land, the area, and so forth. So I think that's what we're seeing there, and I couldn't be more thrilled. I think it's great.
Yeah, and I think it's smart. Like when DCA first opened, they tried to be more like a Cliff Notes version of California, like get a taste of everything. But it didn't really work because you're never going to be able to compete with the real Pacific Ocean. You're never going to be able to compete with the real Golden Gate Bridge. So this new approach of having, these Disney IP, these Disney stories kind of tell that California story, because like you're not going to get that anywhere else but Disney. Disney's the only place that can provide you that. So it's unique to that experience. So I think it's a smart direction. I'm encouraged by that little synopsis that they're basically going to have, at least loosely tied to California and Los Angeles. I think we might even hear some stuff maybe in the Web Slingers attraction of like Stark Industries and when they moved to California and they converted this old auto body shop into a lab or whatever. I think we might hear a little bit of stuff like that too, to kind of, give the guests a little bit of the nugget to let them know, hey, this is why this is in California Adventure. And I think it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. It's the right direction for this park. It gives you the flexibility to have your IP. It's still connected to California. And it's a win-win all around, really, Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. I agree.
Yeah. So I wanted to pivot now to Disneyland Forward, this huge expansion proposal that came out. I think it's been like a couple of weeks now. First time hearing Tyler's opinion on this. So I'm going to start with Tyler. Real quick, though, Tyler, before I do that, let me go ahead and actually, you provided me a great piece of art here, and I wanted to share it while you discussed your views on it.
Tyler, you've been doing some great work on this, by the way, on Twitter. I mean, you've really been investigating this and hunting these things down. It really is impressive, sir. Well done.
Thank you. That's one of the benefits of having just recently gotten a new computer and it was perfect timing, lightning in a bottle. I had the time to actually do the research. So as we're looking at on here, we can pretty much recognize most of these properties. So my personal hope is that they're kind of faking everybody out with a little bit of this, because they're saying that they want to turn the Toy Story lot into basically Disney Springs.
Yeah.
I really hope they're trying to fake everybody out with that, because one, Garden Walk is right across the street, and that has been struggling ever since it opened over a decade ago. I don't see how a Disney shopping center opening up right next door to Garden Walk would do anything but help Garden Walk do better, especially if Disney ever wants to get their hands on that property. And that's why I kind of think that they might be trying to psych everybody out by saying, oh, we just want to do expansions of Disneyland and DCA on the west side in the parking lots. They're probably going to need to do that eventually anyway. that they really don't have much room to work with. But if they do a third park where Toy Story is, and they acquire Garden Walk and basically keep it as shopping and dining, but have that be where they have their Disney Springs or Downtown Disney East, then you're buying yourself at least an extra 20 years before you start having this issue of running out of space again. Because you'll be able to cycle your expansions between all three parks.
Right.
If you only have the two parks to work with, you're going to run out of space again in about 15 years, and then what do you do? Then you've already used your extra space that you had available that is currently zoned to be turned into a park, and it has been since before Disney purchased that property. The city has had that as, we want this to be a third park for Disney since the 90s, at least. That's as far back as I could find. And it would make sense if they're going to build the Eastern Gateway parking lot, which, let's be honest, nothing else can happen without that going forward. They cannot lose more parking. They need that structure. Big time. If they do that Eastern Gateway, you've got pretty convenient walkway to Disneyland and California Adventures Esplanade. Well, you can pretty easily, using this image with the overhead, you can see how you could easily make a ground path through Garden Walk over to a third park. Then you're funneling the guests through shopping and dining, much like how the hotel guests are funneled through Downtown Disney now. And then they can get over there. And then the line that I kind of drew in there is a proposal of, if they were to do like a Skyliner, for example, to connect the main areas. So I have it being next to the current Downtown Disney monorail, and then running over to Eastern Gateway, and then from Eastern Gateway over to the potential third park. And the reason I think that they're kind of psyching everybody out and they might actually be thinking of doing something similar to this is because they don't want to tip their hand and have Garden Walk's owner know, oh, this is definitely what we want to do, so then they know to jack up what they're going to charge Disney to buy the property.
Right.
Because there have been opportunities to purchase that land in the past. I think the main reason Disney didn't buy it yet is because they weren't ready to do anything like a third park at the time. But they were certainly planning on doing one before California Adventure opened. They had the website thirdthemepark.com. And
you can't get more not subtle than that.
And it was teasing the potential of a third park. Everybody knew it would go in the old strawberry fields. And they were teasing, what if Ariel had a home here? What if Winnie the Pooh had a home? This was before the Country Bears got converted to Winnie the Pooh. This was long before the Little Mermaid had her ride in Paradise Pier. They've been teasing the idea of a third park for 20 years. Now, I know that under the most recent leadership, they were saying, oh, there's not going to be a third park anytime soon. Well, that's partly because, one, right around the time that DCA opened was a little before 9/11, and that killed tourism. Also, TCA opened to very lackluster performance on its attendance. And so they had to start giving it shots in the arm. That's why it got Tower of Terror. I remember seeing an interview with Imagineers. Originally, there was going to be a Western geyser version of that ride put behind Thunder Mountain instead. But they had to do something quick, and they were like, we need a shot in the arm. We need something that'll drive people into DCA. That's why we got Tower of Terror. We also got Bugs Land right away because they needed something for a shot in the arm for families to do with their kids. Now, thankfully, we've gotten a few of those kinds of attractions in the pier. So we've still got some of those family things. And then they spent how much money on having to basically redo most of the park?
Yeah.
I mean, they redid the entire area outside Soarin'. It looks a whole lot better now than it did originally.
Oh, yeah.
Buena Vista Street, Cars Land, the pier remodel twice over now, World of Colors edition, and now Avengers Campus. They have spent, I can't remember how much it was, but I think they spent the same amount to do the big overhaul that got us Cars Land and Buena Vista Street as when they built the park in the first place, partly because they had to rebuild stuff.
Right.
And I think
Mhm.
that because
Well,
DCA had such low attendance at first is why they really pumped the brakes on, we can't do a third park anytime soon. We got to get DCA up to snuff. And now it actually is competitive on attendance. Now there are plenty of people that choose to go to DCA in the morning before they go over to Disneyland. And that's how they count the attendance, is which one you scan your ticket into first. So I do believe that we are closer than we've ever been to a third park being a reality in California. Um, but I do also think that they need to get the approval for the zoning on the parking lots on the west side, because even if they build that third park, they're still going to need the expansion room for the other two.
Right.
So it's one of those things where it's a question of how long do you want it to be before they have to go, well, would you rather we expand or replace Pirates of the Caribbean? You know, I don't think they'll ever replace Pirates or Haunted Mansion, but there is that possibility, unfortunately, because there is such a small amount of space for them to work with. There's really not much. There's about one true expansion pad between Toontown and Galaxy's Edge, which will most likely go to Galaxy's Edge. And there's a little bit of an expansion pad that is where we're going to get the hopefully it is only shelved and not permanently canceled Avengers e-ticket to go behind the Quinjet. That's the red square there. And then the other thing you'll notice is that dark blue triangle up in the current Toy Story bus drop-off. Well, with the plans for Eastern Gateway, that was going to move that entire shuttle drop-off across the street. Now
Right, and then-
DCA can expand into that zone.
and alter
go
the
north.
monorail loop in order to facilitate that.
Yeah, they can easily have a little bit of space get swallowed up by DCA to the north there, and potentially a little bit of backstage for Disneyland on the south side of Tomorrowland. I don't know that they could really do much attraction-wise over there, but they could put some backstage facility there. And I know in general, I've seen some people kind of talking about, well, there's a little bit of room they could do something between Main Street and Tomorrowland.
Wow.
I really don't think that will happen, because while theoretically, yes, there's room, there's too much other backstage stuff that goes on there, including that's where the parade floats sit and park when they aren't in use, especially if they run 2 times a day. The first time is going to be from Small World, and then it's going to park there until it goes for the second round. And sometimes if a parade only runs once, it's there all day. You really don't have room to put anything there, nothing
And-
substantial.
Those floats, I mean, the way they park them, they're so tight as it is, because there's a kind of a maintenance road around the belt where they have to park them inside of, and it's tight. They use every single square inch. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and having been there one night that it had been raining during the day, so they weren't able, and this was during the 60th anniversary. They were not able to run Soundsational during the day because it was raining. That meant they couldn't run Paint the Night because the floats were still on the Main Street end. They had nowhere to put Paint the Night floats when they would finish. So that was one of those things. They kept teasing that, well, we haven't made the decision yet. And that was before I realized that, oh, wait, Soundsational didn't run today. They can't run it. Even if they want to, they can't. They have nowhere to put the floats. So, based on that, I really don't see much options for growth in that zone. Tomorrowland needs a massive overhaul. But we all know that no matter how much Disney wants to do it, it's always the bottom of the list of priorities. At least that's how it seems, because people have been talking about how much it needed it since right after DCA opened. So
there's a good old story about Jack Lindquist about he was approached about, okay, you can either get a new attraction or you can get a new Tomorrowland. and he chose the new attraction because he knew that Tomorrowland needed to be done anyway, so you might as well get an attraction out of it, and that's how we got Indiana Jones Adventure.
Oh,
Pretty
nice.
clever, but that's partly why it's like, well, it's you gotta do it, and as soon as you do it, it's out of date.
Yeah. Well, and especially now, I think that what they need to do for Tomorrowland for any kind of growth, and I do think that even though they weren't really talking about Tomorrowland specifically in their post on Disneyland Forward, I think that is on the back of their minds of what they want to do there. I think they have to go full on futuristic. Don't even attempt to be slightly futuristic on the technology, because technology is going to catch up to them in a year. So go completely fanciful, things that we can't even fathom being real.
Right.
So go, have the Tron coaster. That's not going to be something we can really do, but do the Tron coaster. That's something we could do in a Disney Tomorrowland. One thing I would love for them to do is have the daytime aesthetic of the area match that of Brad Bird's Tomorrowland film. I loved the aesthetic of Tomorrowland in the film. But then at night, your lighting package, and you don't really notice it during the day, makes the whole area look like you've walked into the grid.
Nice.
Like, I think that would be gorgeous at night. Because Tomorrowland already has a nice lighting package, but it's getting a little stale. Some of that's been there for decades, and it's starting to get stale. And there's something about the lighting package within Tron for the grid that is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I do think that, like, if they're going to overhaul Tomorrowland, pretty much the only two things that I would keep, and I would still they'd probably have to do some minor rerouting of the monorail track in that area, because it just loops around forever. I think monorail and Space Mountain are pretty much the only two things I would say are safe. And I think everything else is up for potential replacement or complete different use of space. We've got Astro Blasters in Tomorrowland. We've got Toy Story Mania in the pier. Do we really need 2 Toy Story shooter rides? I mean, not really. We've got Star Tours in Tomorrowland, which I love. But then we've also got an entire area for Star Wars, including the Millennium Falcon attraction. Not even just on the same resort property, but in the same park on the other corner.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to justify having the Star Wars stuff that's in Tomorrowland still. So I really think that Tomorrowland desperately needs an overhaul. And I think that might be part of why they were teasing potentially a Tron coaster when they posted that stuff. Because nothing else they posted, if we were to take it at face value, would even go anywhere near being what Tron is. So it wouldn't make sense. Tron really only makes sense in Tomorrowland. So overall, my hope is third gate. Disney buys Garden Walk before they announce a third gate. And I think that's going to be a key thing. If we see news that Disney has bought Garden Walk, I think that's going to tell us more about what their plans are. And especially because as much as Disney's been hurting this year and the city's been hurting this year, you think Garden Walk isn't also hurting?
Oh, yeah.
2 of their biggest venues are the House of Blues, which hasn't been able to have live performances for a year, and the AMC Theaters, which hasn't been able to open until just recently. So they're hurting too. That owner must be hurting, and I bet they'd be pretty open to Disney giving them a decent price for it.
Now, Vash, there's a lot to chew on there. Third park, Tomorrowland. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on what Tyler was saying about how Disney's kind of keeping their plans close to their chest, and they're not really showing their hand? What are your feelings on all that?
So, So you look at the Disneyland Forever plans, and the whole idea is to make these areas more flexible than they are. So if you already have that area, the potential, the strawberry fields, already zoned as a third gate, doesn't really make sense to pitch a third gate to the city if it's already zoned for that. So I think they just put that in there. The more I kind of think about it, I think they just put that in there just to show, okay, this is what we could do if given the flexibility to do it. Doesn't mean that we actually are, and we have to show variance anyway because it's different. We have to show that we want something different than what it's already done for, already. So I think that's kind of the thought process because, man, you're just never going to get that much land ever again. And yeah, I mean, if you fail, it might go into why the expansions are so exorbitant or so aggressive is because, man, if you don't have a third gate in that area, you're locked, To Tyler's point, I mean, it's like 15 years. I mean, it's just how much more expansion can you get out of it? Not much. Speaking on that point, though, the spaghetti bowl of what they call the monorail loop back there just kind of goes around. We have to remember that was an attraction at one point, not really transportation, so it kind of had to do those things to give a decent guest experience. And so it's like, okay, do we really need that now if it is transportation? And I know the Imagineers have kind of circled that a lot. It's just like, okay, we can get rid of maybe 80% of this track, but free up so much real estate to do, cool, brand new and amazing things. If it is Tron, and hey, I'd love to get Tron. That looks amazing, right? If they do it, can we just sink the show building so that it doesn't tower over the rest of the park like it does in Magic Kingdom? That'd be great. I know their water table's really high. That's why they can't do it, but can we do that in Disneyland? I think that would, I think we'd all appreciate that. And then when it comes to the Garden Walk, yeah, I mean, it just makes too much sense. And I think they're really not showing their cards because it's, I mean, anybody knows if Disney's knocking, they got deep pockets and now the price goes up. But like the Florida project back in the 1960s, Disney might already be making moves and we just don't know about it.
Right.
There's some information out there that suggests that they're using shell corporations and companies to buy up some stuff covertly already. Yeah, and so if there's a new, transaction taking place in the Garden Walk, definitely keep track of that company, the names, and all that kind of stuff because don't put it past Disney. They'll do it, and there's never been an opportunity than now.
Yeah, and I did look up just in case to try to figure out if maybe they did this during this last purchase, but it doesn't look like it because the current owners of the property have dozens of properties all over the place. So I don't think that they did that on Garden Walk yet, but I think they will. But I did see an example of one that I don't know if we want to divulge on here what it was, but there is one of the smaller hotels that they definitely own. I looked up the ownership company, and that one hotel is the only property that they have. It's the only one they manage. And the management company is like 3-4 people. So it's like, I wonder. There's a management company that runs this one hotel as opposed to it just being like, the management company is operated out of the hotel because the management company's location is not at the hotel. Plus then seeing accounts of people that have stayed there and had gotten injured, and it was Disney healthcare that was taking care of them as opposed to just calling 911. I remember a long time ago during a family trip, my brother had a bad allergic reaction in the park. That's how I learned that Disney has their own ambulances that they take people out on. They don't call 911, they use their own.
Wow.
And it sounds like that's what they use for that other hotel that it sounds like Disney has purchased. So it would not surprise me if there are more of those little pockets of land that they've gotten. I just haven't been able to find concrete information. Here in my state, I can look up very easily and figure out who owns each property in any county and what the current assessed value is. I cannot find a way to do that online for Orange County or Anaheim. Not in the same function. What I've seen for Orange County is like you have to request it and they'll mail it to you and it's going to cost you. So,
and it might just be limited to residents of Orange County as well.
Yep. or like if you're legit interested in potentially purchasing a property,
Oh, interesting.
they
Okay.
might be willing to give it to you. But I'd be curious to see just how much of that land next to the Toy Story lot Disney might have snatched up over the last couple decades. Wouldn't
And
surprise me if they've gotten a few.
Yeah, and one thing that we also have to consider when it comes to this whole third gate thing is that Disney is currently kind of in transition with their CEO. I mean, technically Chapek is CEO, but in December, Bob Iger is out of the company completely, right?
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that's had a job, when a new manager comes in, they always try to make a name for themselves. They usually try to shake things up, do something different to sort of put their fingerprint on the corporation. It wouldn't surprise me right now, with Chapek now sort of running the show, and he will be completely after December, that he would want to make a move like this to put his imprint on the company and to kind of show shareholders, hey, look, you know what, this is my thing. This is my bold vision, for Anaheim. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remind me, when did he take over for Tom Staggs as far as head of the parks?
Oh, that's a good one.
I don't
good
remember
question.
what the last project was that Staggs was around for. I know Staggs announced Avatar, but I don't remember how much of Galaxy's Edge he was around for.
If I could be mistaken, and don't quote me on this, comment below if anyone knows the official year, but I'm thinking, because Galaxy's Edge opened in like 2019, I believe Chapek took over in the middle of the construction. If I were to guess, 2016-ish.
Yeah.
Around there.
So the reason that I bring that up is because as much as we will in the Disney community talk about Chapek being cheap on everything, which, probably accurate to say, at least to some extent, he still gave DCA an Avengers Campus. He didn't only do that overseas. They still gave Disneyland Galaxy's Edge instead of leaving that to just Florida. So they have been showing over the last decade that they are more than happy to invest in Disneyland and not just over in Florida. Because every time people talk about expansion of the parks, it's always, well, Florida can get a fifth park or they can expand out and therefore. But everyone kind of just ignores the idea that Disney could do a third park here. And I think part of it is not realizing just how big that Strawberry Field / Toy Story parking lot property is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because when DCA opened, and I can't give an exact acreage of what it was pre Bugs Land and Tower of Terror, but with those and before Cars Land expansion, it was only 55 acres.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That because I actually have a recording of the monorail spiel as you're riding on it, and it says
55.
just ahead is Disney's California Adventure, a 55-acre theme park. And I'm like, oh, so that was only 55, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this property is about 75.
Mm-hmm.
They can do a 55-acre park over there, give themselves room to grow out. That way they give themselves an extra couple of decades of growth. It just seems like a lot of the Disney community is almost thinking less imaginatively with California than they are in Florida. Florida, they want to do everything. They want Wakanda over there. They want, they wanted a whole park for Star Wars over there. And I remember thinking, and you can look at my old blog posts on this, before they ever announced Galaxy's Edge, I was thinking, they've got that property they could do a third park in. They could easily do something that's Star Wars, Marvel, Incredibles, and other big Disney IPs that are heroic in nature. You could put Aladdin, Hercules, etc. over there and have it be like a heroes and villains type thing.
Right.
And you could have Star Wars and Marvel be your anchors for that. Now, I don't know how you approach that now that both of those are in the other park, unless you do... you could do more Marvel over there and have it be different from Avengers Campus. You could have a legit Wakanda in there that you can't do in California Adventure because it wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
You
Well,
can play
got
that up
some
in Avengers
options.
Campus too.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I also am curious about is what we might see them touch on the Fox properties. Because while I think most of their reasoning for wanting to purchase Fox was for streaming and for TV and for film, although a little less on film than TV. TV, they're ecstatic about. Um, I mean, they're really happy with the TV end. So much so that as soon as they were able to, they started putting all Fox shows and especially FX shows immediately onto Hulu as like co-productions. Like there's the whole FX on Hulu now that didn't exist before the merger. So they're very excited about Fox. Now I'm curious to see what we might see for Fox properties that could potentially go in a third park.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Die
you know,
Hard ride.
Necessarily picture them for Disneyland, but maybe a little bit in DCA and maybe a little bit in a third park. One thing I remember thinking was, what if they did some sort of a Buffy thing during Halloween in one of the parks? Because Buffy
Right.
is Fox. You can have some sort of Vampire Slayer thing. Make it a little bit toned down from what you might see at Universal or Knott's, but you could still do something that's a little bit closer to that, a little bit edgier, kind of like the old Alien Encounter from Florida. That
Right.
was very edgy. You could do something edgy with something like Buffy in a park. I just don't think you can do that in Disneyland Park.
Right.
And so far, the only reference to anything Fox that I've seen in the parks is during like the first Halloween events after they bought it. They started using the time warp in some of the stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, well, so they're using a little bit of Fox already. That didn't take long, but that's all we're getting so far.
Yeah, Tyler, you mentioned a great point, and I want to touch upon. You mentioned how Disney fans are very non-imaginative or creative or whatever, and when it comes to Anaheim, and you're correct, because look, if I would have told the fan community 10, 15 years ago, hey, you know what? We can build a 14-acre Star Wars land behind the rivers of America. 90% of the community or more would have said, Orange Grove, you're nuts. You can't do that. There's backstage there. We need those buildings. We can't do it. It's impossible. It's impossible. And look, they ended up doing it, right? So you made a great point where like people need to understand that when Disney wants to do something, they'll move heaven and earth to do it. So if they want that third park, if they want to have that extra gate, they're going to pull strings and move mountains to do that. What are your feelings on all this, Dre? Like, I mean, what are your thoughts on all this expansion talk and
they
and all that?
To your point, they did it again with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
Exactly.
Could you have imagined something that large being behind Toontown? It's like, well, those buildings. Well, now they're gone now, and they're being more flexible, and they're clever. We can locate stuff off-site, we can locate stuff to different sites, and that's what they're doing. And I think it's fantastic. To your point, Tom Staggs announced that he was leaving April 4th, 2016. So you were right on that. And as far as Fox properties out in a new park, Die Hard ride. Come on, let's do it. No,
Yes.
Probably. That would be awesome. Look, you know what? You got Tower of Terror. You got the Die Hard Tower. Come on. Okay, all right. Okay, we're probably not going to do that, but that would be cool. Look, I think there's like a range of different things you can do. It's and look, they showed that in Disneyland Forever. Look, I mean, another end of a park across a street. Who would have ever thought that was possible? And yet there it is.
Right.
And you can do a similar thing with Garden Walk if you do it. Why do you have to have the entrance necessarily be beyond the street? Why can't you have it be in front of on the other side of the street? Have you walk over a bridge, and now you have all that unmolested real estate for theme park space. I mean, you can be creative. You can do stuff in Anaheim. It just takes a matter of will and just some creative thought.
Well, and Dre, I mean, it's like, yeah, everyone goes to like that, like, oh, Florida needs a fifth park thing. But here's the counter argument to that whole mentality. Walt Disney World is a massive resort complex. It's already a week-long vacation to get through all the parks and the resorts. You're already going to be there a week. there's only so many days realistically the average family can tack on to that already long vacation.
Yeah.
But in Anaheim, it's a little different. Anaheim only has 2 parks. It's a lot easier for Disney to convince a family to add another day or so to that experience. It's easier for a working mother or whoever to take off, 3 or 4 days of work than it is to take off, a week and a half to go to Florida. You know what I'm saying? So there's more growth, not physical growth, but more growth potential, financial growth, what have you, percentage, hotel occupancy and all that in Anaheim. And I think Disney realizes that, and they're looking for ways to really tap that market.
There's that famous story in Animal Kingdom where when they were opening that theme park, they thought, okay, well, we'll bump up days from 3 to 4, and that just really didn't happen. So now you're going to be asking 4 to 5? I mean, that's a big ask, to your point there. And then, it's a different ask from 2 to 3, for example. And I think if you can ask, if you can build a new theme park, 2 to 3, I think is quite reasonable. But 3 to 4, 4 to 5, I mean that's big asks. And again, they'll build a 5th park when they finish the last 2. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What are your thoughts, Tyler, on that? Like growth potential and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so as somebody who is up in Seattle area, every trip I've had has had to involve a hotel stay. I have yet to stay at a Disney hotel when I go to California because I'm trying to budget out how I'm going to do my trip. I could either stay at the Paradise Pier, which is the cheapest of the 3, and lose at least 1 day in the park, or I can stay off-site for significantly less, and I can tack on an extra day. We don't have a Disney Value Resort in California. That is one thing I would love to see with any growth, is at least one proper Disney Value Resort like the Art of Animation, but maybe instead of doing Art of Animation, you have one wing be Disney Animation, one be Pixar, one be Marvel, and one be Star Wars. You could do something like that where you're using all of your available major IP as hyper-themed areas for a value resort. And then you can keep doing your moderates. I don't think we really need another deluxe like the Grand, because that's very much out of a lot of people's price ranges. If I was to stay one night at the Grand, that would be a 1-day trip. At least, that's my budget, But I'm also like, when I go, I'm also looking at, okay, if I stay at the cheaper hotel, does that mean I'm going to the Blue Bayou for a lunch or a dinner? Does that mean I'm going to a character dining breakfast at least once or twice? And those cost more per meal, but it's easier to do when you have a cheaper hotel room you can stay in. And that's part of why I think that you see so many people staying at the non-Disney hotels around there, because they're usually a bit cheaper.
Right.
And also, one thing I was thinking about is with the site for a potential third gate. On one side, you've got affordable housing, which they could do stuff to do sound barriers in between. They could put backstage stuff on that end to do a sound barrier. I've also heard potentially there's a lot of cast members that live there. So if the majority of the tenants are cast members, maybe what they do is they redevelop the area, or they offer to redevelop that, put the cast members in like the Paradise Pier, because that's the least booked of the 3 hotels, just because it's the cheapest, but it's they're also going to lose less per day someone's in there than they would on, say, the Grand. Put them up in there, redevelop that area, and then you can have like proper like cast housing back there, and they could have their own entrance into backstage if they work in that park. You have some options you could do if it's true that a lot of the people that live there are cast, which wouldn't surprise me because it's affordable housing. Then on the other side of the properties, you've got hotels. I bet those hotels would love to have a theme park on that side instead of a parking lot, because all of a sudden they can charge more for the rooms on that side.
Right.
They can charge a lot more for the rooms on that side than they can now, because the view of a parking lot is, whatever. Having a park right there that you can see from your room, that's an upcharge. So I bet those hotels would love if Disney were to put a whole park there, especially more than doing shopping and dining. So I really love the idea of getting a third park, getting a few more hotels. Do maybe 2 or 3 moderates, maybe 1 deluxe, but definitely 1 value. It'd be very I would love to stay on property. When I went to Florida, we stayed on property. We stayed at Art of Animation, and I loved it. Super convenient. I could just take the Disney bus because that was before Skyliner opened. We could take the bus over to the parks, and it was super convenient. And it didn't cost extra like it does now if you take the ART, because the ART is like $5 a day or something like that. If you have Disney hotels, then they don't necessarily charge you for the bus transportation to and from. Plus, Disney wants to control your experience as much as they can during your stay at the parks. And I do imagine that if they were to do a third park, you might not necessarily have more people that choose to go to Disneyland first as far as their vacation destination, but they would choose to add on an extra day or 2 instead of necessarily spending one of those days at Knott's. I don't think Universal is going to lose too many of their individual days from Disney guests because of Harry Potter being so popular, and Jurassic Park and some of the other IPs there, but especially Harry Potter since it's so big for them. But, you might take off a day from Knott's or Lego at that point.
Right.
I think Disney would be happy to do that. They want that money.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's about how much can Disney make off of you, the guest. They want your money.
Exactly. Now, for Vash, in terms of, because I know you're out of state as well.
Yeah.
So when you come here, what's your experience? Do you guys usually stay? Because you're close enough that maybe, do you stay at the hotels, or what's your experience with in regards to all that?
I've been going since before I was even alive. I know this for a fact because my mother was pregnant with me. She couldn't go on Splash Mountain when it opened because I was there. So I've been going this whole time, all 30 years or so, and we've never stayed on property once.
Wow.
Never. Wow. It's never happened before, and the reason is because it's like Tyler said, it's just too expensive. It's just really. It's like, to your point, I could stay there one night, or I could stay almost like a week somewhere off property. You gotta get a little far out to get something decent, but you can, and it's like, okay, well, I'd rather spend more time at the parks than less, and have really nice accommodations that I'm not really gonna be at. So that's kind of where I'm at. And to your point, yeah, they do need a value resort. And I will say though, I'm kind of disappointed, Tyler. You didn't bring up not once the beautiful new value resort coming to Tokyo Disneyland. He didn't even bring it up.
Toy Story Hotel.
Yeah, the Toy Story Hotel. It's so ornate. There's so much quality there. The architectural stylings and details are just so good.
Oh yeah, the Grand Floridian is shaking.
God, it will put all of the Walt Disney World resorts to shame. Maybe even the Grand Californian with it. I really am disappointed, but I'll take that. I'll take that.
On that, I did see because Marvel has been putting news out all week. They also just gave another tease of the redo of the Hotel New York over in Paris.
Right. Yeah.
And I can't remember what price point that hotel is, but I do remember looking up Paris and everything was cheaper over there. Their moderates were the price of a value in Florida.
Yeah.
So
the reason for that is
affordable.
They found out when they were building Disneyland Paris. It's like, okay, we're gonna go big. We're gonna go with all these resort hotels. It's gonna be perfect, and then we're not next to the train. It's gonna be awesome, and that's gonna lead directly to Paris. You're competing with Paris, and you're gonna build resort hotels there and have them quickly accessed by train. And think that through. That's why it's a little bit. The competition's fierce.
Yeah.
But when I saw that, I was like, oh, right. They need to do something to the pier. They need to do something to it because, one, it's an eyesore. Now, if I remember correctly, Disney didn't originally own the Disneyland Hotel or Paradise Pier Hotel. Both of those existed before Disney owned those areas.
Right.
I think they acquired them about the same time. And Paradise Pier, I don't know if that was owned by the Rather Corporation. I know the Disneyland Hotel was.
It was a Japanese corporation that owned Paradise Pier before.
But so I have to wonder how much of the reason that they haven't really done anything over there is because they don't know what they want to do to make it appealing. Because I would have expected that when they announced Pixar Pier, oh, well, they're going to make that the Pixar Hotel. You're going to have a Pixar character dining downstairs like it's Stitch now. You're going to have each room be Pixar, much like Art of Animation has with the different stuff. And that hasn't happened. They haven't announced anything for that hotel. And I'm just like, really?
Well, and when Disney holds back on IP, I find it highly suspicious. So there's obviously something there holding them back, whether it's legal issue wranglings, whatever it is, I have no clue. But yeah, because inserting Pixar to that hotel would increase the occupancy like tenfold, I'm sure. And for them to hold back and not do that, that should have been the first thing they touched, to be quite honest with you. And they're not even.
Yeah. I think they, it's one of those things. They have to have a minimum amount of inventory. And ideally, it's like, okay, maybe we should raise this thing and build a new hotel in its place. But then it's like, okay, well, if we could potentially expand, Disney California Adventure that side, do we necessarily need a hotel there? And yeah, I do think it's a lot of indecision. I think it's a lot of like, we know we need to do something, but we don't want to throw good money after bad kind of thing. And I think that's kind of the trick there with Paradise Pier. It's quite unfortunate, and it's a real eyesore. It's a real stain on that side of the park, but it's just me.
It is.
Yeah. But then also knowing that it was one of those acquisitions for Disney is why it's such an eyesore, because they didn't build it from the ground up. If they had built it, it would look so much more appealing from the outside, and it wouldn't intrude on the park. If it did intrude, it would be themed to that part of the park.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank both of you gentlemen for coming on. This was an incredible conversation. A lot of interesting points made, and it was a fun time, man. I appreciate both of you coming on.
Fantastic. No, it was illuminating. I mean, it was really, really profound. So thank you very much for coming on. This has been fantastic.
So, Tyler, we'll start with you. If you can just kind of remind everybody where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, it's going to be at WraithKelso for pretty much everything social media related, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, etc. Other than my blog, which I have a link to on my Twitter. So if you want to check that out as well.
And I'll go ahead and I'll put your blog in the description below too as well on this video, so they can check that out easy and just click on it.
Yeah, because in there I went into a real deep dive on some of that property history of when Disney got stuff. So
awesome. And hey, VashSky, where can everyone find you at home?
Best place to find me is at VashSky on Twitter. That's at V as in Victor, ASHSKY. Best place to interact with me. I'm always down for a conversation. I'm going to be producing some content for this channel right here, so hit that subscribe button so you can stay informed on that. I'm really thankful to be on and be a part of this. This was really, really rewarding. Thank you.
It was fun having both of you on, and thank you all so much for watching. We do appreciate it. Comment below with your opinions on the Avengers Campus, the expansion, all of it. We really want to hear from you. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.